Hi, I'm Julie LaVoice, and did you ever have, when you were a kid, close friends of your parents that you called Aunt so-and-so and Uncle so-and-so? And then at some point in your life you realized, oh, wow, we're not actually blood related. These are just really good old friends of my parents. But your whole life they were still, Aunt so-and-so and Uncle so-and-so. I had lots of those. And I was lucky enough, and am lucky enough, to have been that person for some of my friends' kids. And one of those kids passed away recently. So I kind of wanted to talk about atheism and grieving. This is not the first nephew I've lost. My very first nephew, who was born when I was 8 years old. Now, to be clear, there's quite a gap between my eldest sibling and I, so it's, it makes sense, biologically speaking. My first nephew, Lucas, died in a car accident a week before his second birthday. And that was very hard on our family. That was my parents' first grandchild. It was the twins, my older siblings. There's one that's the oldest. It was his son. Try not to name any names out of school here. The next siblings are the Jedi twins, and then there's me. And the twins were 18, I think. And the father of my first nephew, Lucas, was in his early 20s when his son died. And it was a tragic accident, and it was no one's fault. But we all took it very hard. It's always incredibly hard when a young person dies, especially somebody who's, barely had any time in the world at all. And for my grandpa, that was his first great-grandchild, his great-grandson, of which he got to meet 3 before he passed away. So, well done. But we lost the first one. My parents lost their first grandchild. I lost my first nephew. I was 8 years old. And that was very hard. This, in some ways, is harder. I think because I'm 41 and I can process grief in a way that I could not when I was 8. And also because I don't believe in an afterlife anymore. So my best friend's oldest son was 21 years old. And she found him dead in his apartment a couple of days ago. And again, I'm not going to mention any names because that is no one's business. They're private. Their grief is private. I'm putting mine online. That's my business, but I'm not going to do that to them. I've known this kid since, I say kid, I know he was 21, but come on, I'm 20 years older, and he was a freaking kid. Anyway, I've known him since he was a baby. He called me Aunt Julie his whole life. Even when he grew up and moved out and got his own apartment, he would send me Facebook messages and pictures of him and his girlfriend, and just check in every once in a while, which he didn't have to do. And yet he did. And I'm struggling with how to process that, with how to process someone who would have turned 22 on November 16th of this year not being here anymore. Now, to be very clear, he had a lot of health problems. He was a brittle diabetic. He had to have a heart transplant when he was 13. Last year he had a stroke and very nearly died. I'm sorry, that was 2 years ago. He had a stroke and very nearly died. So it was his horrific medical history that led to his death. His very premature death. At not quite 22. Which is so difficult to wrap your mind around, right? To only have 22 years. I didn't even figure out the God question until I was 40. When I was his age, my frontal lobe wasn't fully developed. I mean, what? So it's frustrating. And grieving as an atheist is hard because we know, or we believe, I should say, and I think I have good reasons for believing that I'll never see him again. We won't be reunited in some kind of bizarre praise God all the livelong day afterlife, which sounds frankly horrible and terrifying to me. He's just done. I do, however, believe in peace. And this kid, this bonus nephew of mine, he had a really rough time of it. He has amazing parents and an amazing grandmother. But physically and mentally, he had a rough go at life. He got dealt a really difficult hand. And part of me is glad that he's not suffering anymore. And part of me wishes I could have met him at 40 and seen the man he would have been. So that's where I'm at. Morbid first video, I realize, but let me know what you think about atheism and grief. How do we deal? What do you think about it? Ugh, I should have put on makeup. Alright. I hope you are having a wonderful night. Hope you're having a great fall season. And we'll talk soon. Love from Memphis, y'all.